Good morning. I am up way too early this morning and out in the garden. I think it's about 6:30, but when I came out before sunrise, I realized that it had rained last night. There were puddles on the road and the smell of rain in the air, which is so exciting because we missed our winter rains this year. I think where I live, I got one very late shower in February, early February, and that's it. So I was really happy to see that it rained because all of the desert trees and plants definitely need a good drink. I am just so excited about how refreshed the garden in the desert look this morning that I wanted to share it with you, as well as some of the jobs that I'm doing in the garden and just the state of affairs with everything, how the plants are doing, what I'm harvesting, what's blooming, and just take you along with me on a little impromptu garden tour on this very rainy morning. So nice to see all of the rain droplets on all of the leaves, and the birds are so happy this morning. They are all just singing their hearts out up in the trees. This tub is about 4 feet across and 2 feet deep, and I just sowed it completely in spinach, and this is a new variety to me. I think I've shared it before, but I will put the variety on the screen. And I have just been using the cut and come again method for this and have had more spinach than I know what to do with. Actually, a couple of days ago I made a big pot of soup and I trimmed about half of this tub off, and you can see that it's already starting to regrow. So I would highly recommend this variety. It's done so well. I just scattered the seed in here and covered it with a row cover so the birds couldn't get it, and now we have been enjoying spinach for weeks. This tub is also doing super well. I've got lettuce and beets and Swiss chard and of course all kinds of kale over here. And I have more kale than I know what to do with. I've been giving it to my kids, sending it home with them, and eating it myself, and it's just a lot. So I think it's amazing how much food you can get from just a small amount of greens. If you're in a small space and you're wanting something that will give you food the entire season, greens are the way to go. And I know that you can only eat so many salads. We have a couple salads a day here at my house, and I also make a lot of soups, and I make omelets and things like that where I can utilize those greens. Smoothies is another great one for spinach. So I make a smoothie that I really like that has either mango or pineapple, some banana, some spinach. It's really good. It sounds weird, but it's actually very tasty. But what I like about greens is that they aren't picky. You can put them in a flower pot, in a grow bag, a stock tank, a raised bed, in the ground. They just grow, and they don't need a lot of space because they don't have very deep root systems. You can harvest it over and over again throughout the seasons. I harvested from some lettuce for a couple of months, which is actually a pretty long time. And now that the temperatures are getting a little warmer, a lot of my lettuce is starting to bolt, but I have really enjoyed having the lettuce for the time that we did. If you're in a small space, I would highly recommend growing whatever green it is that you like, whether it's kale or Swiss chard or spinach or lettuce. I've got collards over here and mizuna, so it's an endless possibility for greens. The garlic that I got and planted from Keen Garlic Farm is doing such a great job. I'm gonna go show you that garlic bed. In that bed, I have garlic on one side, and then I have shallots, and then I have some toy onions on the end, and those are from Native Seed Search. But the shallots and the garlic are from Keen Garlic Farm, and I would highly recommend that company. I have just been so satisfied with everything that they've sent me and with their customer service. It's just been great. And so far, the garlic is coming along nicely. Let's go check that out. I think I'm gonna have enough garlic to store for quite some time. And this bed is pretty big, And like I said, half of it is garlic, half is shallot and onions. And just like with the onions on the other side, I have been checking a couple of the garlics on the edges just to kind of see where they're at, because they are starting to get pretty chunky at the base, but so far the bulb has not formed yet. Now, I'm not really surprised that they don't have bulbs forming yet because it's still quite early. I think last year I harvested my garlic in May, so we've got a couple of months yet. So I expect that they will really start to bulk up and put on a good sized bulb pretty soon here. Pardon all the weeds. I have had so much London Rocket in here. So this is a London Rocket plant. It's got little yellow blooms on the tips, and then the bottom part does kind of look like an arugula shaped leaf here. Also, I've got some wild tansy, so I'm just gonna pull that out. And all along the edge closest to the house, I have planted scabiosa seeds or pincushion flower. And so those are really starting to grow. I can't wait for their little floofy blooms to decorate this garlic bed. I also cannot wait for the calendula. So I planted calendula on the other side closest to my pomegranates, and that is finally starting to bloom as well. And I have been trying to practice self-control with not harvesting the flowers yet, because I like to harvest them and dehydrate them and then infuse oil that I can use in skin products for myself. And it is so hard because the butterflies are starting to finally arrive. The bees have been here for a little while, but they are all over these calendula blooms. And so I'm like, okay, guys, you are important to me in my garden, so I'm gonna let you have first dibs on it. But I am over here wringing my hands and waiting to be able to pick my share. Most of the plants in this bed are still really small, but some of them are starting to bloom, which is really, really exciting, all the way along on this side, right next to the garlic. And of course, more of that London Rocket right there. That's what that weed is. I did see that some of the older plants from last year that managed to survive the summer and winter are coming back, so they have a lot more blooms, so it won't be long before I can steal some. This is one of the older plants, and you can see some of the old plant material here that I need to just prune off, but it is rebounding quite a bit, and it has got a lot of blooms on it. And actually this one looks like it's going to seed already, but those are just the prettiest things. Look at that. So gorgeous. My favorite color too. I may be a little too gratuitous with the calendula planting, but I included an entire row over here, a 28-foot long row right next to my tomato plants. So I'm going to show you that now. So first of all, on the back side of this row, I have tomatoes in these walls of water, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I also have some kale and cabbages finishing up. I have some chamomile, but all the way along, I have sprinkled some calendula seeds because I want as much as I can get for me and for my pollinating friends. So let's talk about these walls of water. I was really busy this past Saturday because I planted out a couple dozen tomato plants already, and I've got them behind all of these walls of water. And I had put out a reel earlier and a short on YouTube explaining them, but just in case you missed that, let's talk about it. The concept with these walls of water is that the water that's inside the plastic material surrounding the tomato plant will absorb the heat of the day, and it will keep the temperature more consistent and a little bit higher than the outside temperature during the first part of the spring. So it'll protect the plants from frost, and it will also help speed their development and make them grow a little bit faster, which I'm all about because I want fresh tomatoes. So each one of these has got little individual partitions, and you fill those partitions with water, and it kind of makes a little accordion shape, and the tomato plant can sit down inside here. Now, I found that the more water you put in, the wider this opening stays. So I actually prefer to put less water in so that it naturally kind of folds in on itself, because that will help cover the top so that it will prevent frost from getting in there. So I like doing it like that a little bit better. As I mentioned in that short, sometimes I will also cover with a row cover if I'm really worried about the temperatures, just to make sure that the opening in the top of these walls of water is covered and no frost can get in to my little babies. That is that side of the row. I'm also planning later, when it gets a little warmer in a few weeks, to sow some squash and pumpkin seeds here because I want them to grow this way. I've got some very small fig seedlings out here, which I don't think will be bothered by the pumpkins because they're a little bit taller. So the pumpkins can sprawl over here in no man's land where there's not much going on, and I won't have to try to fight and crawl through the jungle like I did last year. But on this side, I've got peas right now, which I shared before, and I also have more beet seedlings. I've got beets all the way down of various sizes and various varieties. So my plan though is to stagger more tomato plants on this side. So what I'm going to do is I will put one here in between those two on that side and one there and so on. That way I kind of have a staggered kind of a pattern all the way down this row. I'm hoping to maximize the space here and grow more tomatoes in this space than I did last year. Last year, this cattle panel trellis and this row were for the pole beans that I grew, but this year I am going to grow tomatoes on this side to see how I like supporting them with that cattle panel trellis. I will just tie the tomatoes to the cattle panel trellis as they grow, and we'll see how that goes. I'm also hoping that that soil in that bed is really, really nice because for the last 2 years, I've just grown beans, and then of course the zinnias took over a bit too, but they aren't too demanding. So I'm hoping that the soil is really nice from all of the nitrogen fixing that those beans provided. But because I have no self-control and I planted way too many tomato seeds this year, I've got an overabundance of seedlings. So I'm also going to be planting some of them in this row right here where the peas and the onions are right now. Now, like I shared, I can't use the end of this bed because I filled it completely with onions and they aren't done, but on that other side, I can plant the tomatoes down the middle. Just a little housekeeping. I wanted to let those of you who don't know that I have a free newsletter that I send out on the first Sunday of every month. So if you would like to sign up for that, I will leave the link down below where you can go put your email in and receive that newsletter. The next one is coming out the first week of April. I also have a free resource for you that I will link down below, and it is a seed starting guide for mid-March for the Tucson area. So if you're wondering what seeds you can sow outdoors right now or what transplants you can put out in your garden right now, that should help you along. As I said, I will leave the link to that free downloadable PDF down below. And strawberries in my stock tank are going for it. They're starting to bloom and put on these little berries. These are an alpine variety, so they are just very small, but so flavorful. I shared in my last garden tour about the Concord grapes. So if you haven't seen that tour, you can go check that out. I will link it in the description below. But the grapes are doing really well. These are 4 new grapevines for us this year, and they've got little grape clusters on them. All of them do. But to be cautious about Mr. Squirrel and some of the pack rats that we do have around, I have added some fencing to it. And I want to show you this because I've gotten a lot of questions lately about people having problems with rabbits and pack rats eating their garden. And so I have an option that I think is so easy. I've purchased them. I didn't have to build them, which cost more, but I've been using these for several years now, and I will continue to. So I feel like the price at the beginning is a little bit painful, but hopefully it will make up for itself because they will last for years to come. I have these grapes underneath these chicken wire cages, and I really like these cages. I got them from Gardener's Supply. I will link them below, but I like them because they accommodate a taller plant. And you can see these grapes are probably about a foot tall, so they've got another probably 1.5 or 2 even before they reach the top of that cage. And what's really nice about these cages is that you can actually buy extenders to extend them another probably 18 inches. So you put the extender in, it's like a box at the base, and then you just set this little house right on top, and it has been working really well. I use these so much all over my garden, and it's nice because they're not affixed or anything. You can just lift them with these little handles, and you can just move them wherever you want to. I had a garden fail, and I want to share that with you because I think so often on YouTube and on social media, you get to see the highlight reel of everyone's gardens, and then when things don't work out for your garden, you think, well, what's wrong with me? Am I just a really bad gardener? And no, you're not. Things like that happen. You can't control the seasons, you can't control the pests, and sometimes you can't even control your own behavior. So let me show you what I did. I'm taking full responsibility of this. This is my mistake, my laziness. So let's take a look. How do you think they look? Can you see all of the damage here? Let me get a little bit closer. So these plants are still alive. You can really tell with this one, the leaves at the bottom are still quite alive. So they will rebound, but this is frost damage. I had been out of town in California for a couple of weeks and had gotten some kind of a little bug. I was under the weather for a couple of days, and one of those days was the day that we returned home. And we had had some high winds at my house, and the frost covers that I had on this bed where my potatoes are growing blew off. And I knew it was off, and I looked at the weather and I thought, oh, you know, it's going to be 34, 35. I think they'll be okay. But that night, it actually got down to 31 degrees. And so obviously the potatoes took a lot of frost damage. What I should have done is come out here and not been lazy and put that frost cloth back over it. But I didn't. I'm just lucky that they just got damaged instead of killed. So lesson learned, don't be lazy in the garden. If you are not really feeling it one night and you don't feel like going out and, you know, doing whatever it is, if it's just a quick job like that, try to make yourself do it, because I would have been so sad had my potatoes gotten killed, but luckily they did not, and I learned the lesson without having it be so painful. These are called Chicky Chick pansies. I got them from Baker Creek. How cute is that? I've also got a little bit of thyme in here, and somewhere, where is it? Oh yeah, here we go. Some peppermint. The citrus is smelling so good. Now this lime has been struggling. I've shared that before. I think it's just a bit too cold here where I am for it, but it's trying and it smells heavenly. This tub right here is the closest to the house and to this brick wall, and it is a south-facing wall. So my hope is that I can get my tomato seedlings put out here and they will stay nice and warm throughout the early spring, so I don't have to worry about them too much. I will probably cover them with a frost cover just to make sure they're okay. I think we're gonna have mid to high 30s a couple nights next week, but other than that, I think we'll probably be good to go moving forward. The last frost date for Tucson is usually March 15th, but where I am, just a little bit south of Tucson, it'll be 2 or 3 weeks longer than that. So I just want to make sure that I'm protecting my plants as I'm putting them out. Covering them with a frost cloth will help harden them off or toughen them up after they have been pampered in the house. My plan for these stock tanks is to trial several different kinds of dwarf and determinate tomatoes in these tubs, because I'm always on the search for things that will do well in containers and small spaces for all of you who have those kinds of growing conditions. So I have a big garden, but I'm always trying different things for different situations so that I can help you better. So I've got a lot of tomato varieties that will be new to me this year that I'm really excited to try. I've got a couple of cucumbers that are also container friendly, as well as some eggplants and some peppers. So stay tuned for that. I'm very excited about the stock tank project for the summer, and I can't wait to try new ones for you. This little pear tree is starting to bud out, and it's got all of its little blooms. They're so, so cute. Hopefully I'll get some pears this year, but of course the birds are hoping the same thing. So I will have to put my little net over this to keep them from pecking at the fruits. My apple tree saga continues with Mr. Squirrel. We have been having a competition to see who gets the fruit first. So far, I'm winning this year. Well, sort of, if you don't count the fact that he chewed all of the blooms off of one of my trees. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the fruit that is now setting on some of them. One of the trees is finished blooming, and I saw that has set fruit. So I have got the cover on that one. The other one is still finishing up blooming, and I want the bees to pollinate the blooms, so I have that one uncovered. But as soon as those blooms fall and I see that there is some evidence of fruit, that will be covered as well, because last year Mr. Squirrel ate all of the baby fruits off my trees, and I am not taking that chance this year. This is the bloom on the annas. So I have 2 annas on the end and a dorset in the middle, and I think the dorset just sets fruit a little bit sooner. So he's got a little bit of blooming. I've got the end of this cover right here ready and waiting, but over here I have this one covered. But on this one, this is the dorset. I think it just sets fruit a little bit early. This one has the little fruits already here. So that one I have covered up. I've just covered it with this mesh, which will not harm the lizards or the birds like the ones with the 1-inch holes in them. And I will just fasten this with these spring clips right here. And that seems to do the trick to keep the squirrel away. At least I hope it does the trick to keep the squirrel away. These nasturtiums have just gone crazy in the last couple of weeks, and I'm so pleased with them. I have, I think, 3 different colors. I've got this very, very vibrant orange, and I have a yellow variety, and I've got a little bit lighter orange color as well, and there's a peachy color on the other side. I had to fight so hard to protect these nasturtiums over the last couple of months because of the frost that we were getting at night, and I covered them with a frost cloth pretty diligently, and although they did take some frost damage, they have rebounded and they are so beautiful. I'm really pleased with them. The hummingbird moths have been very pleased with them as well. Last night when I was out here, I was able to capture on my cell phone some video of a hummingbird moth just going to bloom and really enjoying it, and it was so cute because he would crawl all the way inside the bloom. I had never seen them do that before. They have such a long proboscis that they usually will just hover in front of the flower that they are pollinating and eating from, but this particular hummingbird moth was getting very serious about these nasturtiums, and it could just be the structure of the flower, but he was crawling all the way inside, and it was very cute to see. So I will share that with you, even though it's a vertical video from my cell phone, but I think that you'll like it. Also in this tub I have some lettuce that I've let go to flower too, mainly because I want to save the seed from this variety. So they aren't fully open right now. It's very cute. They will open in the day and then they close at night, but they have kind of a dandelion type of look to them, really, just on a smaller scale. So I'm really looking forward to saving the seeds from these. So they will go from this, where the stem elongates, and then the bloom kind of changes more like this. Eventually it will look more like this, where it's developed further still, and then finally the plant will erupt into all of these cute petite little blooms. So they're very pretty. Look at all of these leeks. I am so pleased with them so far, and I think that they will have plenty of time to finish their thing before I have to harvest them from the heat and rescue them. At the corners of my grape trellis, I've got some lavender planted, and this overwintered really well, and this is starting to bloom. It smells so good. Is there anything better than lavender? The little fig tree is starting to wake up as well, which is so exciting because I love figs. This bed of fava beans is doing great. I saw the bees on them yesterday. These blooms are really cute. But yeah, they're doing great. I'm hoping to get some food off of these, and then I'll just chop and drop the rest for benefiting the soil. The clover ground cover that I put into my cabbage bed is obviously doing very well. And the cabbages don't seem to mind. They seem to be forming the heads. Okay, this one is about a softball size right now, so hopefully he gets a little bit bigger. But I've been really pleased with the clover. I'm hoping that it will add nitrogen to the soil. I will chop it and leave it in place as a green mulch. For now, it's helping to conserve the water and prevent weed growth because not much is growing through there. Also in this same bed are my Brussels sprouts. So I have not picked the whole thing yet. I've just been stealing sprouts off of the bottom of the stalk as they go up. So hopefully I can get a couple more weeks out of these. But don't you just love that squeak? That is fresh food right there. One of my onion beds is doing so well. I have 5 rows of onions in here and I am so excited. I'm counting the days until I can harvest, but I've got a long wait still. So you can see I've been checking down here. I kind of dig around the base of the onion because it's getting pretty chunky, but the bulb has not formed yet. So I will just leave him be and wait with great anticipation as these onions get ready. So I put 5 rows over here because I ran out of space, honestly. Normally I would just leave the middle free so that whatever I needed to plant for the upcoming season would have the room, but I'm gonna have to forego this end of the bed. That is a consideration that you should make when you're planting things that take a long time, like onions or garlic. Do you want the bed to be used for something else in the upcoming season, or do you have the time to wait for them to finish up and to go without that bed for that season? My volunteer peas are doing so good. They have got the sweetest little blooms on them, and look at those raindrops. But on this side, I have the onions just planted on either side here, and I've got a few lettuce left that I haven't harvested in this particular row. So my goal was to leave this bed partially open so that I could plant tomatoes down the middle once I harvest the lettuce while the onions finish their thing. I went to go pull out this London rocket. It was a huge monster plant, and I ended up pulling out 2 of the carrots that were growing right next to it, so that wasn't very smart, but I guess I will have some baby carrots for my salad, which brings me to my next point, and that is that my carrots are doing really well. So I've got carrots in a big long row. This row is about 30 feet, and I have all kinds of different ones. I just mixed the varieties together so that I could have a rainbow of carrots when I harvest them. I'm not saving the seeds from these, so I think it'll be okay. This is about the size that they are right now. They smell really good, very nice and carroty. For those of you who are wondering, I planted this row of carrots on November 23rd, and it is mid-March now, so that's what, 4 months? So about 4 months to get from seed to like baby carrot size. So I think probably in another month I will have delicious carrots. Now, a lot of times carrots will only take about 50 to 60 days to mature from seed to harvest, but during the cold weather, it really slows down their growth, and it's been really cold here, so I think they are just moving a little bit slower, which is fine because I'm patient, and they will be done in plenty of time for me to use this bed for other things. Over here in my cabbage bed, I think my favorite variety this year are the Savoy cabbages. They have just been doing really well. I've harvested a couple, and then I've got some of various sizes still to look forward to. So they did a great job this season, and I'll definitely include those next year. Before I go, I have a quick question for you. If you wouldn't mind dropping an answer in the comments below, I'd like to know what day of the week and what time of day you are most likely to watch shows on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. That really helps me out a lot with my publishing schedule. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me on this very moody, beautiful, rainy morning. And thank you again for allowing me to share my garden with you. It's something that I really enjoy doing. I'm Kara from Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy gardening.